I'm a bit perturbed. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, where sometimes we get 2 feet of snow at a sitting. And I was a paper boy, which made it very difficult to do my job back then. And I kind of moved away from all that situation to Atlanta because I really didn't want to deal with those kind of winters anymore. Well, we got 3 inches of snow and counting so far in my neck of Atlanta, Stockbridge, Georgia. So excuse my saltiness just a tad, although I'm very happy to be here because it is Friday afternoon, and that means Small Biz Breakdown. And this is a kind of a milestone of sorts. This is episode number 20. 20. And they said it couldn't last. Leland, they said it couldn't last. Do you believe those folks?
We proved them wrong.
And I'll give you a second or two to brag about your current weather situation.
Oh, yes, it is. It's lovely. Nice 40s, 50s degrees. No hint of snow. I wish it would snow a little bit. I want that snow cap to hit the mountains, but I'm okay with it here being a little nice, mild.
Well, I'm glad you're okay with the mild weather. We were really worried about that, but I don't know if it's as mild in Gary, Indiana, where Pierre is joining us today. How's it going?
uh, it's snowy here, true to Chicago area tradition. So yes, we have snow.
I'm
Good to
kind
be
of glad
here.
to hear that after Leland's weather report. I don't want to be the only
Yeah.
one with snow. And I believe there's some lingering snow in our nation's capital where Shashi is. Hey, Shashi.
Yes, you're very right. I think the snow is going to go away next week, hopefully.
Go away. Yeah, I would like it to go away right now, but it's not gonna happen. Anyway, the small biz news does not stop because the snow hits Atlanta, Georgia. So we got to keep going with this stuff. And I always like to start with a little brain teaser, a test, a quiz of sorts, a question, a query. One of those, I don't know. All right, so I did get some information from my friends over at Adobe, and they have totaled up the holiday shopping season in the US from an online perspective. And I would like for each of you to take a guess as to what you think the total number was spent in the US during the holiday season just online was this past holiday season. So let me get, I'm going to pick somebody. Shashi, I'm going with Shashi first. What is your guess for how much was spent online during this holiday season in the US?
You're putting me on the spot, right? So
That's
I'm
what I
going to
do.
go
That's what I do.
no scientific reasoning behind, but just probably recollection, 20 billion.
20 billion. Okay. Shashi is in for 20 billion. Pierre.
I'm gonna go with that Price is Right tradition of trying to look for the low amount. So I'm going to say closer to 15 billion.
15 billion. So, okay. All right. So we got 20 billion. We got 15 billion. And coming in from Oregon, we have Leland weighing in with what?
I'm gonna go around 30 billion.
So, wow, you guys are like in lockstep here.
We are well informed.
Yeah, well, maybe not as well informed as you thought because the actual number was 241. I can't leave out
my
0.4 billion.
Ooh.
I missed a zero.
Oh,
So it sounds like there's a lot of surprise here for that
Yeah,
number.
I wonder.
yeah. I guess I guess it's a milestone of how much e-commerce has been part of our lives, like collectively. People are more accustomed to doing business online. We don't hear these terms like BOPIS as much anymore. It's not that it's not unique, but it's not as unique as when e-commerce first developed. So you get people much more comfortable. Wow. Way comfortable. More comfortable than we thought. I'll just say that.
Yeah, but maybe it's also like even if you go to a store, you're probably going to order online. You're just going to the store to kick some tires and check it out, right? So I wonder how much this was 10 years ago.
Oh, I'm sure it was a fraction of that 10 years ago. I mean, there's still people thinking that Amazon was just selling books 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
now they sell pretty much
Yeah.
everything. I think even Greenland, maybe is Greenland up for sale on Oh yeah, that's a whole other story.
Gosh.
got the delivery. They're gonna take it and
Yeah, how do
it
you
with their
deliver
own.
Greenland? I'd love to have Greenland delivered right to my front door in 7 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not the only interesting number. I'm gonna give you another one. See if you guys want to can redeem yourselves, because quite honestly, that was a pretty poor showing. I'm guessing. That's all.
Yeah.
All right, so and this is one of these AI kind of things. Consumers are embracing generative AI powered chatbots as shopping assistants for quickly finding deals or locating products, with a blankety blank percentage increase in traffic to retail sites from last year. What percentage increase were consumers using chatbots, and it increased that traffic to these retail sites? So basically, what percentage year over year increase did consumers use chatbots this year compared to last year?
Oh, okay.
I know they had a really convoluted way of saying that, so I had to break it down. Yeah.
Yeah. If I think
I
year over, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say something because AI chatbots last year weren't necessarily as big of a thing as they are this year, so I'm gonna probably go 500% increase.
Okay, 500%. Who else?
Ah.
And remember, my name isn't Bob Barker, so this ain't The Price is Right. You can go ahead and guess either way.
I'm going to be okay. I would probably say more closer to maybe a 200% jump than anything else. Oh, this is year over year, so I'm kind of I'm thinking that's got to be a little lower, but I'm gonna go with 200.
So we got 200
Okay.
and we got 500.
80%.
Ooh, he is
Ooh.
definitely doing the Price is Right. 80%. All right, it's quite the range. We have 80%, we have 200%, we have 500%. The
Well, we got
actual
scolded
answer,
last time, so
yeah, and you guys are still way off because it was 1,300%.
Wow.
I think you got to tell us like it's double digits, triple digits, or four
Yeah.
digits.
It's always an extra zero, man.
Yeah.
Always.
Once again,
Ooh.
are you surprised that jump is so dramatic, or have you used a chatbot in some of your shopping recently? I'm curious to find out.
I would
Yeah, I
think,
can go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, I would think part of that, usually when you see dramatic jumps like that, it also means that there was just so little at the beginning. So that almost anything creates that 13, it's 1,300%, but what was the volume from one year to the other? I think that's probably a big part of it. So it's indicating that there was nothing almost a year ago, and now we have some level of AI assisted interaction that people are getting comfortable with.
Yeah, I just used one over the weekend, and it is from a very well-known global company. Hopefully, they'll be sponsors of this show sometime, so I won't mention the brand. But I had to find, like, I went to all these usual sites to say, like, okay, washing machine, which is a good one and everything. Then I realized I needed a washing machine that fits into the stupid area that I have, right? And there is no way you can go to just a website and say, like, hey, I want a washing machine of these dimensions. So I had to use chatbots, and I got some really good recommendations on which product I should use based on the. So that kind of intelligence you are still not getting from just a regular website. So having a chatbot on your website, I think, is a very positive experience. But make sure it gets delivered on time, which is not happening in my case.
That's not a good part of the experience, that's for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I said it earlier. It's basically last year was the advent of ChatGPT coming out, and then everyone else coming out with their AIs. And I would imagine that it's, by the time Christmas came around, maybe there was a couple of companies incorporating chatbots in their programs, in their websites, but I doubt a lot of them were. And now you have Wix coming out with like their own chat box that you could put on your website. And so it's becoming a lot more available. And so I could, see 1,300% increase. That's why I went 500%. I underestimated it, but and I bet next year it's going to probably be another 1,300% increase.
Yeah, but like going back to what Pierre said, this year over year increase, that's because probably hardly anybody was using it last year compared to this year. But next year is really going to be interesting, because what if it is another close to 1,300%? Then you're really talking about some significant, substantial number of people using it, even beyond these inflated increased percentages, because maybe 2 people use it last year and 12 people use it this year, compared to, well, all right, if they do another year over year like this year, now we're really starting to see some serious movement. I don't think it's I think in the big scheme of things, it's still not a lot of people doing it just yet, because there's still some kinks, and I think maybe this year will help get some of those kinks moved out, and maybe we'll see more actual concrete numbers, not just percentage increase numbers, because that's all I saw. All I saw is the percentage increase. I want to know, like, how many millions of people does that equate to?
That's true. It could be just one person, and now 1,300 people.
Yeah, right. So it'll be interesting to see. But once again, you guys need to do some more reading. So.
All right, bring it on. Next question we'll get into.
All right.
Something a little less numeric. Which for me is a little embarrassing. So
all right.
okay.
I actually do think I have one, and this is ripped from the headlines of Small Business Trends. A study, and this is really cool. Somebody did a study, Kaplan. I think it's Kaplan Associates, somebody, and Leland, please feel free to summarize wherever you see fit. But they did this survey, and they surveyed how popular side hustles are, what kinds of side hustles are entrepreneurs gravitating towards, and where are they geographically speaking. And I would love for you guys to, and this isn't a numerical one, but they listed a certain kind of the top kinds of side hustles people are searching for online. You want to take a guess as to what the number one side hustle people are searching on to find out how to do it, how to actually view that as a side hustle? Take a guess.
Personal shopper.
Okay,
Which
that's a good guess. Personal shopper. That's a good guess. Yeah. Pierre?
I'm almost tempted to say AI consultant, but I'm also that's
you're way too far into that bubble, man.
Yeah, that's I see the serpent swirling around, but I'm almost can I change my answer? There's one thing I'm going to say: tarot reader, and I'm going to tell you why I say that. There's people that there's actually a market around that, around the Gen Zs. I didn't know this is because I've been running into it on Alignable. There's people that just pop up. I'm a tarot reader. There was one woman, I think she said, I'm a tarot reader for women who's been traumatized. I'm like, that's very specific and very narrow. But there is a little bit of a market that's been forming on it over the last few years. So
wow,
I'm going to go with that. Yeah.
Tarot reader and personal shopper. I'm assuming, Leland, you actually know what the answer is, so I'm going to leave you out. Or did you read this?
I glazed over it just to see, okay, is this something good?
All right,
but I didn't do a full in-depth read. But I'll pass. My answer would be a little bit more cynical. It would be like multi-level marketing or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we had personal shopper, we had tarot card reader. That is a really interesting one there. And yeah, the cynical Leland is coming in with MLM. We got to have that multi-level marketing. All right. Actually, the right answer is drop shipping. People are trying to get into drop shipping. Leads the pack as the most searched side hustle, 5,000 monthly searches. How surprised are you that it was something as logical as something like drop shipping?
I'm not surprised. I've forgotten about this actually. So, but it would have been something. People, when it comes to side hustles, they look for the simplest thing that has enough transaction to turn over. So I'm not surprised that this is the top thing.
Tell me what drop shipping is. I thought only like manufacturers did this.
So drop shipping is where a company will sell you could sell products through a company. So you have your website, a person comes to the website, buys it, the order goes through you to the drop shipping company. And that drop shipping company has the product, kind of like Amazon, and will deliver it for you to the person making the order.
So are people here doing the drop shipping, or are they doing the websites to
They're
connect it?
doing the websites to sell the products for the drop shipping company, and then
Oh,
they get
yeah,
a cut of the commission.
got it. I can get on board with that. Like 10, 15, or even 20 years ago, I used to do like affiliate marketing.
Hmm.
And I used to advertise on Google, and it was quite a good business because at that time, no company knew what to do with Google ads. So it's quite early on for me.
I bet we're entering a stage now where they're going to have to completely, while that was great for the last couple of decades with all this AI stuff, that's going to be changing pretty significantly too at some point, I would assume, right?
What, the amount
Yeah.
of people going to drop shipping?
No, the what Shashi was doing around the marketing and the
Oh yeah.
you're gonna have to change that up some point really soon.
Yeah.
All right, so very interesting because the other lists of the ones that were in the list: landscaping, photography, lawn care, and pet sitting. These are all like I was originally when I read this, I was thinking more like Pierre. I was like, wow, where are like the the influencers or the content creators or some of that kind of. Are you surprised that these are like really traditional kinds of things here?
I would
Yep.
say I'm not surprised on any of them except for photography. I remember meeting photographers throughout my time for running Zamano. I did talk to small business owners. Photographers are they usually don't, most people want them to do weddings, and most photographers don't want to do weddings, basically,
Why is that?
because
Because
there's a
there's a
lot of
lot of
pressure.
work involved. Yeah,
A
pressure.
lot of pressure. Yeah. And you have to deliver that service precisely. If you don't, it's really a mess up.
Hmm.
But having said that, and plus also smartphones, people are more used to they're learning how to do tricks with their smartphones much more effectively. So between those two, I always thought that while photography I think is not dying on the vine, there's still some people who can still come in with a really good camera, really good lighting, and really have a good studio. I think that's hard to do as a side hustle in some ways, but clearly people are getting into it. So there you
I
go.
completely disagree with you, Pierre. I could probably list on both hands friends who on my Facebook I could go and be like, hey, can you take a picture, family photo. They love it because it's a cheap side hustle that they can get into, and it's a good like mommy side hustle. I've got kids. I want to be able to do these weddings or family photos, senior pictures on the weekend, and all I need is a good $500 camera and a good photo editing software, and I'm golden, and I can charge $500 for a wedding or $1,000 for a wedding, and it's really cheap, and it is a really easy side hustle to kind of get into. It's a hard side hustle to master, but
Yeah.
um,
Uh,
you're not getting that what you were talking, that professional quality, but you're getting a cheap solution to get your family pictures done for $100, $200, or something like that in a cornfield.
Yeah,
I've
I hear you. I hear you.
I've seen, I mean, most of the friends like having parties and things like that. They've always hired some almost side hustle person, right? And I think sometimes some of these people who are doing these side hustles actually have like really great tech jobs. They seem to be doing more for the interest than for money, in my opinion, or maybe both. Some of them came with like drone photography and
Wow. Yeah. Drone photography. Yeah.
so it's like financing your hobby
That
plus
would,
an
yeah.
easy entry. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this: are you surprised? Let me bring that list back up because I was kind of surprised. Are you surprised that there weren't as many searches for stuff like Uber driver or Lyft driver or DoorDash? Are you surprised that none of those were searched in the top
I
search?
would I would say for Uber, there's sort of a love hate with it in the sense that yeah, you could do it, but I've known people who've done it and they didn't like it. The big problem was that they really were. Uber's had problems with people making money off of it. That's kind of like the big challenge. So you have this thing with retention. I had a buddy of mine. He did an Uber as a side hustle, and he didn't like the fact of cleaning after he cleaned his car, did all this stuff. It just wasn't making any money. I think the people who make money at an Uber would have to be someplace like a Las Vegas, where you got travelers coming in. There's a body of people coming in with activity, and you make money doing that. And I would say even Uber Eats, I've seen people transfer over from Uber just to do Uber Eats because they think it was simpler to do that. So I'm not surprised that's not on there as highly. Um, Not that it can't be. I'm not suggesting any side hustle can't be. It's just a matter of kind of, it's the choice that you're making that makes that possible, basically. So
I have a different take on this. Like they don't have to search for. I mean, they're not going to go in and search for like I don't know, shopper or anything like that. They're just going to go to Uber and sign up, or sign up on their Uber app
yeah,
on their phone, right? Because I think judging by the amount of growth that these companies have, there are a lot of people doing Uber and Shipped and everything else as a side hustle, but it doesn't come up in searches because there are other ways to reach them, I think.
Okay.
that's a great point. I like that point.
Instead of searching Uber, they just go uber.com and it goes right to
Yep.
them. And yeah, they bypass search, which that survey seems to be kind of grabbing information from.
Yeah, that's what it. Yeah, so it seems like as traditional, and I'm guessing that the other component to that search is that those folks are probably searching for local opportunities for a lot of that stuff versus these more general kind of things. Although,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still waiting for the tarot card to rise up to the top of that.
Yeah, which I think that ties into Leyland's great point about the photography too. A lot of people I think all these side hustles, people are finding the things they can do locally that they can make money at it. And then the thing that I think the big thing is picking a side hustle that if you have some sort of main job, or let's say that you are trying to run some sort of business, you want your side hustle to complement. You don't want it to distract. And I think that's the challenge I think people are running into now is just, I want to pick something that I can make some money at, but not so much so that it distracts me from some sort of opportunity or goal or just life objective.
Our local roller rink also doubles as a lawn care service. We went in there for like a birthday party, and we're like standing around the door going, okay, when are they going to open it up? And then the lawn care company that comes in, parks up, and they're like, sorry, job took a little bit longer than we thought, and they still smell like cut grass.
Now that is the definition of hustling. I mean, if you got a bowling alley and a lawn care service, and maybe during the tax season they got a tax service too. I mean, I don't know. Just kidding. All right, one last one from this one. What state demonstrated the highest number of new business applications per capita in September of last year?
I'm going to go Utah.
Okay. Utah.
I'm tempted to say Texas just by volume.
Remember, it's per capita though. It's per capita.
Oh, per capita. Oh, okay. Um, Alabama.
Good Lord, really? Okay. Alabama, Utah. Yeah, they do. I hear they do a lot of tarot card new business applications in Alabama.
I'm going to say Virginia.
And lawn care. And lawn care. Caro and lawn care.
All right, so we got Utah, we got Alabama, we got Virginia. The answer is, drum roll, please. Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Now, look, I mean, the key phrase was per capita.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and they're blowing everybody. My home state of Delaware is second, but that, Delaware is are they still the incorporation capital? Probably are.
Yep, they are.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
I was going to say Florida. If you look by numbers, that seems to be the highest, right?
Right, but when you look
44,000.
yeah, but when you look at per number of residents, that's where that's why Wyoming, because there's like hardly anybody living in Wyoming. So it's like
They're all businessmen.
yeah. So I found that really interesting. Because I would have never guessed Wyoming, but there's just not a lot of people there, so maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the thing. It's like everyone needs to start a business in order for the state to be successful because there's nothing there.
And all you folks joining us from Wyoming, you can send all your comments to Leland McFarland. And,
they're probably like, it's true. We got a bowling alley and a movie theater, and that's it. There's nothing else to do.
And also, hello to all my followers on X and YouTube that are following the stream live.
Yes, yes. We got a pretty nice little group of folks there. You know what? Before we go to the next one, I so forget about X from time to time because I'm not on it, but apparently there's still lots of people there. we need to make sure we keep up with those folks. All right, so
I haven't found people leaving X. I mean, there's a very finite group that is left to go to Blue Sky, but the rest of whatever I was doing, I'm still doing on X.
You know what, Shashi, you're just I think you're a unique case of somebody who has built a really good relationship with a lot of folks from the social channels, and you've done it in a way that has become really meaningful. And you're not the typical person on social, not the typical business focused person. You actually have built a persona, a genuine one, and you not only try to push things, you really try to take things in and try to talk to people about the things that you see online. You're not typical, man. Most of these people are more like the MLM kind of people who are just trying to get their stuff in front of people, and they don't really care at all about seeing what else is out there that they could take in. That's why sometimes, maybe I'm a little bit guilty of that, because when I think of X, I just think of it as a distribution channel at this point. But you and I've known you for years through social, and then luckily we got a chance to meet face to face. But you're not the traditional, the typical social user, and I say that in all positivity and sincerity.
Yep. No, thanks. And you're absolutely right. Like, not everybody is doing it in many ways similar to what I'm doing, but yeah, I also like one of the learnings that I have, which may be relevant to this conversation, is also like you have to take the extra step in all of these places to tame the algorithm. So if you're a business owner, like you should be focused in what you're looking at so that you get the same kind of content back versus. So you have to make a decision whether it's personal or business, or it could be both in a way too.
Yeah. But most people, they don't care about that. Unfortunately, I wish there were more Shashis out there, actually, and maybe even less of me. I don't know. All right, so this next one is also from Small Business Trends. Let me pop this up. Let me ask you guys: have you
Yeah.
ever heard of Just Answer? I've really never heard of this before. Are you guys familiar with Just Answer?
I haven't heard
Mhm.
of it before.
Shashi, it sounds like you have. What is Just Answer?
But it's been so far. I think I know somebody who works here also.
Shashi
It's
knows some
almost like,
everybody.
There you go.
but it's almost like you can get the responses from any business without necessarily going and doing a search yourself.
And it seems like it's a place. It's another gig economy kind of thing where people are, I guess, get paid, or somehow there's some sort of a paid structure where folks who have a question, they're getting responses from people who are getting some kind of pay. I don't know exactly how it is, but they're getting paid to participate and answer these questions, right? That's kind of what it is. Just answer. So it's a gig economy play. Maybe there are people who are looking for tarot cards and they come here and they can ask, just answer and get there. No, I'm just kidding there, Pierre. All right. So
I have to give you a little bit of a background on in India before Google became very famous. I think it was called Just Ask or one of them, where you could send a text message and you would get back a list of results. So if you said like, "Hey, I want the nearest haircuttery," it would come back and say like, here are all the ones in your business. So this probably could be similar like that too.
I remember Ask Jeeves. Remember that one?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember how they made money, but apparently this is one of these people sign up and you have to, I guess, have some sort of expertise that can be demonstrable, or there's some sort of credit. And then when people ask a question, they get answers from people who are supposed to be, I guess, have some level of expertise in that space. And I think there's some kind of financial, there has to be, because the IRS is coming for Just Answer. It says a federal court in California granted the IRS permission to issue a John Doe summons to Just Answer, a digital platform headquartered in Covina. And it's all about, if I can find, is this another? Okay. Federal court has granted the Internal Revenue Service permission to issue John Doe summons. The summons seeks information on U.S. taxpayers who earned income by providing expert services through Just Answer between 2017 and 2020. So these folks, it's a gig economy thing. They're getting paid for the expertise through this platform, and maybe the IRS thinks, wait a minute, we don't think we're getting the taxes from the people who are making the money off of this site. So my question is, how big a deal is it? Not specifically for Just Answer, but if they come after Just Answer, is the next step coming after some of the more known gig economy sites like Link, Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, people who are really earning a pretty decent living, but maybe the IRS is saying, are we getting an eyesight as to exactly how much they're making? And so how big a deal do you think this kind of thing is? Not just for Just Answer, but if they could do that for folks making money off of Just Answer, is the next step looking at some of these more bigger, well-known gig economy platforms?
I know there was something they wanted to do some enforcement on Venmo, Zelle, and other payment systems because more than just answers, right? Like any small business today, especially in the home services field, will say like, "Hey, okay, send me a Zelle or send me a." So I'm not sure how they declared that income, but I would probably focus upwards if somebody from IRS asked me my advice on where their enforcement should be, rather than downwards to. Uh,
It sounds like they're coming after the folks who actually made money, the answering questions on Just Answers, not
Yep.
on Just Answer as a business itself.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sort of, I got mixed feelings on it because at the one level, I think it's understandable given that people are more comfortable with transactions online, obviously from the e-commerce stuff quite a bit. The problem I have with it though is that to come for any government agency to come after a business, there needs to be some sort of whistleblowing or a light whistleblowing, I would say, or something. There needs to be something off for you to start asking and investigating a certain transactions from one period to the other. There needs to be something about that period that needs to be at question, and that part probably should be the part that should be transparent at some level. Now, somebody with a little bit more public policy experience than I have will probably have a sharper insight than I do, but just seems a little weird to um, start coming after smaller businesses. At the same time, with federal agencies, and particularly what's happened with COVID. I know we're 4 years out of it now, but I think there just hasn't been this sort of keeping up with the Joneses as far as how government operates in terms of thinking about how people are transacting online. And I think this is sort of their way of trying to kind of to move to where we are now, basically. So I have mixed feelings about the whole thing.
Or maybe it is against just answer. They didn't maintain the records and didn't give whatever that form they need to give to people who earn more than $600, right?
Yeah.
I do think that this is a little bit more of the U.S. government trying to get the money whenever they can. Back, it was a couple of years ago, the IRS hired a ton of new agents, and with the goal of trying to make sure that people are paying their taxes. And PayPal last year were like, okay, we're just going to put out 1099s for everyone who has received money through PayPal over a certain amount. And I bet that was from pressure from the U.S. government saying, we want to know how much people are making. You're recording all of this, so give it all to us. And so I just think that it's the government going, no, we want the money. Give us the money.
Do you think with the new administration coming in that this might actually go away?
I know that
Yeah.
he, there's been talks about wanting to do like flat tax. I remember seeing a tweet, I think yesterday, they're wanting to remove payroll tax as a gift tax, and there's already someone putting in legislation to put away taxing tips. So it's definitely a possibility that all of a sudden all of this is just going to go away here in a couple of days.
Remember that one? What was that thing they were telling us to do at the end of the year? That BOCI or BCO. Remember that there was this one thing
Oh
that they
yeah,
were.
ownership of your company.
Yeah, remember how they were telling you if you don't get this done by the end of the year, you're gonna have to start paying $500 a day of
That's
fines.
been put on hold.
And it's been put. It kind of like feels like it's not just a short hold. It might be a forever hold coming up here. And I'm just curious. It feels like some of the stuff, some of the things that, like this IRS thing, maybe this stuff all goes away. Maybe this. Do you think it's more likely to go away, or is it more likely to actually get worse and spread to other platforms? Because Just Answer is like, I mean, how many people really even know about Just Answer versus some of the other ones that everybody knows about, and big money is being made, and maybe not as closely accountable financially speaking as people who get their taxes taken out of their paycheck on a regular basis. Do you think it goes away, or do you think it gets worse?
I don't know if worse is. I would say it's good. I think we'll see a little more of it at some level. Maybe not necessarily worse. It's more of a. I think for the government, I think like what Layden says is they're trying to get money where they can, and I think it's more of a shift to where we are right now in terms of we know that people when people do business, it means at some level doing transactions. I mean, B2B, there's sometimes talk of B2Bs acting as a DTC, trying to get to a customer. I would think that somebody within government would have to be like, head has to be in the sand to not notice that and not think, hey, we need to be thinking, how do we monitor these transactions? Maybe not monitor, but how do we get the taxation on the transactions a little bit more critically. It's just like if you like you had gas tax, you have gas tax for road infrastructure. If people aren't buying gas, you're losing money for your infrastructure. And I think it's a shift that the government's trying to figure out how to do. So
Oh, we got a comment from Alex Marcoon. Look up Merrill Jenkins. He beat the IRS. He confronted them with illegal tender laws.
okay.
Anybody heard of Merrill Jenkins? I haven't. But we'll have
No,
to look that up.
look him up.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. What do you want to happen? Do you think it's to me, it's like, and this kind of maybe goes back to our discussion last week around like Gen Z and Alpha, and I think now there's a beta. I think people born on January 1st were called beta babies for some reason. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think like, let's see. The IRS did not want his victory of them on the record. Okay. Given what we talked about with the younger generations not having the kind of opportunities that we had, like when we first started working, we actually worked at a job, and I'm saying we as in like our generations for the most part. When we started working, at least there were jobs that had benefits and had like growth paths, and you can get raises, and you get 2 weeks vacation, and you got health benefits, and you got a 401k, and you were able to work there for years and not have to worry too much about getting laid off. And so you have maybe like a good 10 years of employment that you didn't have to worry about, health benefits, vacations, money stacking up in your 401k, enough to buy a house. And then, when you buy a house, you hope, 20 years later, it has grown in wealth and you can do whatever. Now, people in the millennials and Gen Zs and, ones coming up after them, they don't have any of those wealth builders. A lot of them are making their income off of gig economy stuff. Is it fair to go after these folks? I mean, I don't think it's fair. I think we strip them of all the traditional wealth, growth kind of channels. They have to go to gig economy because nobody wants to give them those things anymore. And then you come after them, with the IRS. I think that's like, piling on at this point. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think this is a time where the government needs to think about the process and how they're getting that message out to people. I think when I think about this stuff like with the just answer, I think the risk that they run into is that if there's too many of these that are coming up, let's just say that there's maybe 3 or 4 other just answers where now they have to go back and ask about, what was his income from this period to this period. 1 or 2 maybe, can be forgettable. If it's more than a few, then they need to speak more. Then I think the agencies need to think more about policy of what they're announcing and think a little bit more about something sort of guideline that helps businesses to start thinking, be something cooperative that helps businesses think ahead about how do we set aside for, for our tax relative to what we're making online. I think that's the part that's maybe a little bit missing at this point, because it's a lot of information where everyone's just going off of the information that they've had for a long time and the practices that they've had for a long time. So if there's changes, there needs to be more to speak to policy and getting the word out. The point that you brought up earlier about I still really understand that thing, the $500 a day fine if you don't do X, Y, and Z for transparency. I almost thought that was a scam, frankly, when I first heard it, because I didn't hear a sort of, I didn't see USA Today, saying, that there was some sort of that there's a policy change. And I think this is the part that I think that we have to be careful about, because this is how misinformation starts up if it's not this coherent guidance that should be happening to help us make empowered decisions.
There are actually 2 things that I got from what you said, Pierre. Number 1 is actually the second part. Nobody knows anymore where to go to find real information. And The best thing is they go to TikTok, and whatever the influencer says seems to be the truth. That's one part, and I don't have the answer to how to solve that problem other than probably some of these new AI engines. And I'm actually writing a research paper on what companies should do to at least have a good chance to get into that. But the first part of it is like, I've been in the US for 25 years. I haven't seen anything change in the way the taxes are filed. It's been the same thing over and over again. That I think is a problem, because if things change along with how we are using information and how we are changing, then we have an easy way of figuring out what is the little bit of change. Like you said, whatever law that came that said if you had more than two partners, you had to go and file this paperwork. I mean, it should have been an easy, like, one button click somewhere from your bank or wherever, instead of going and filling up a form. I mean, I still believe like some of the government departments already have a lot of paper that is actually stored in underground ones without moving them to electronic records, right? Like the IRS is just coming now, and I like the IRS.
Words I never thought I'd hear spoken for $200, Alex.
What I meant is like they are very slow to change. But I think from what
Yeah.
I've read, it's not just the people working for IRS. It's a combination of what they are empowered to do versus what the legislative gives them and what the president says they should do. All of these three have to match well together.
I fear how much this is costing versus how much they're going to get out of it. They're putting in this big lawsuit. They're doing this big hunt, and they're going to go comb through many man hours to comb through all of Just Answers, John Doe requests, and then they're going to find out we're missing $50. We're going to get $50 in, and it costs $200 million. And the thing that I get frustrated with is when you get policies like this benefit ownership kind of policy, and it's like we're going to harm small business owners that are legitimate, that are just doing their thing, and didn't hear about this new rule that you've got to do this benefit ownership thing to catch the small amount of possible criminals that are using shell accounts and stuff like that. I don't like that kind of legislation, and that's why you have like the NSBA going after this law and trying to get it removed, because it's just going to hurt a bunch of small business owners, potentially put them in jail, because you can actually get thrown in jail if you don't submit this information, all in order to catch maybe a couple of people that are using, and there's a lot of people that are doing this, but they're only going to catch a few people that are using this as like shell accounts and using business as covers illegally. And that's the thing that gets me. It's like, why are you doing something that will hurt small business owners in order to catch or get a little bit of money? That's where my line is, and it's like, no, you're being out of bounds, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, that's my point, right? Like there will be some law somebody will pass, and like you said, for $50 that they recover, they'll spend $5 million, and all that effort and wasted manpower. Yeah, so they should have some way to say like, hey, if we do this, it's going to waste taxpayer money.
Cost benefit analysis.
Yep, cost benefit analysis for everything.
You got to wonder, because the lawsuit is what, between 2017 and 2020? How much actual business could have been done through Just Answers totally compared to some of the other things that are out here? I mean, it can't be that much. So why? I'm just,
But that's also why I think when you hear business legal cases about businesses, it's hard to get a fix on how deep something is or how elaborate I don't want to make it sound like they did something wrong, but until you actually have a whistleblower. I mean, this is what a whistleblower is supposed to be about, in all honesty. I'm not saying that there was a whistleblower at the heart of this, but until you have a case where you're forcing the issue of reviewing documents you don't have an idea of how deep or how far something goes. And I think for a lot of agencies, whether it's Federal Trade Commission, IRS, and everything else, to Leland's point, yeah, it could be. It almost feels like a fishing expedition. You're spending X amount of dollars to go after $50, a tarot reading, and a pack of gum, basically. So,
In the
so all you
bowling
get
alley
is like,
lawn care service combo. You can't leave that.
yeah. So it becomes this thing, and I think there's still a lot of catch up that probably has to be done. A good example, the Jobs Act that passed under Obama, which allowed businesses to start issuing out stock. I can tell you off the bat, was one or two companies have gotten in trouble because they didn't issue the stock correctly, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that they actually went. But the part of the problem was they advertised, say, hey, purchase this stock for $5, but it was actually a penny stock. So, so I know, so they got one of them got in trouble with the SEC. I know, and I think they got it resolved basically. But the challenge is that when we're online as customers or business owners, and particularly if you're working from B2B, you're trusting that people have everything together, and sometimes they don't. And it's until there's actually a press in a court, particularly for business, you don't have a scale for that, which means to Leyland's point, you run the risk of, maybe it is that multi-billion dollar, scheme by, organized crime, something that becomes a movie. Although a lot of them are also the $50 tarot reading with the pack of gum as well too. So it's a challenge, I think. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I think we're in for some challenging times. Just generally speaking. One quick one before we leave. I saw somebody had put a YouTube video of I think it was some kind of a Q&A that Elon Musk did with some guy online, probably somebody who has a lot of followers for Elon to do that. And the guy asked him about now that Elon has had more chance to actually look at the current situation and see what's what in a more detailed manner, did he really think that they could still cut 2 trillion from the budget? And all I can say is maybe Elon was a big Michael Jackson fan back in the day, because he was moonwalking like the best of them away from that $2 trillion. He was like, well, yeah, that's what we're going to shoot for. But even if we shoot for it and we only get $1 trillion, that would actually be. So I know there was a lot of a couple of weeks ago, we were saying we got to give these guys the benefit of the doubt on some of the stuff they said. I don't know if it's going to hold up for very long. Let's just put it like that. You'll see.
I'm surprised the shareholders haven't started to take a little bit of action against him. Here's the thing with Musk. I'm going to try to be as polite about it. I'm really not a big Musk fan, but the thing with me that kills me is that he has his arms almost everywhere, and I kind of get that he doesn't want to give. There's a difference between giving an opinion versus trying to really give an opinion on things that really have like a policy for a country. And I'm not liking that he's involved with the U.S. government at all. To be honest with you, I really don't like it. He's best at financing a company and working with large picture things like SpaceX. Even with Twitter and X, I still think that wasn't his best play, but he had a larger picture in mind. When you get the cost cutting, you have to be a little bit creative in a different way. And there are business people that frankly are not wired for that. When you're wired for a startup, you're thinking about growth, and you're looking at their opportunities. Cost cutting is a very different muscle. It's basically it's a real detail on how your workflow is within your organization where you can actually make real difference. The fact that he's pointing to a budget where 2/3 of it they really can't touch, and it's still it just doesn't fit well. And I just think it's more for optics than anything else. So, and he doesn't seem to know how to stay out of political optics very well. He just doesn't. He doesn't. So that's just my 2 cents.
I have, I've been looking at this. Washington Post had a detailed study on what they were trying to cut, and one of them was like 500 million from public, all the public radio, public television, and everything else. right? So from the outside, they're looking at a lot of stuff that comes their way, which sometimes is not true about what the government is spending on. But in a way, reality is there is, again, a lot of stuff that gets legislated that somebody has actually got to implement, which is quite useless, like what we were discussing before, right? That's one. So, I mean, in a way, I feel some good can come out of this, even if they like reduce the number of forms you fill up to fill tax, right? Or
Yeah.
they make things much quicker. It takes faster to get passports or anything like that. That's the outcome I'm looking for. I mean, most of the federal departments actually distribute money, right? So I'm quite curious about what's going to come out. But Elon Musk himself is a very interesting character. I don't agree with a lot of things that he says, but if you look at the background, as far as developing products and companies, is really good at it.
Yeah.
He
I just
and and I don't know how he saw the foresight of acquiring Twitter, because without Twitter, he would not be as close to the incoming president as he is today. He would just have
yeah.
been just another. So, that 44 billion was a good investment, and then the 200 million was also a good investment. So, and he knows it lasts for 4 years. After that, he'll have to figure out what to do next. So, he's trying his best to make use of that opportunity. I feel like the government spending must have come from the incoming president to say, like, hey, you guys are smart guys. I can't figure out what to give you. So, why don't you go and try this? Is my opinion.
Leon?
I think that the biggest benefit with Musk is he's able to build a supercomputer the likes of which no one has seen in a couple of days, which is impressive enough to make the NVIDIA president go, oh, crap, we could do that. And then he could take the budget, throw it into his own AI that he has, Grok, and then be able to parse out, well, maybe we don't need to spend a couple $1,000,000 on treadmills for shrimp, or we don't need to figure out the COVID effects for just specifically Russian women in Russia. Some things that are just like, do we really need to spend money on that? And yeah, it may not be $2 trillion, but if we could get $500 billion of stuff that we really don't need to actually spend money on, $500 billion is $500 billion. That's money saved at the very least.
Yeah, I think he's the challenge. The math ain't mathing, because I think Pierre said 70% of the overall budget is things like entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, Department of Defense, Department of Education, and
Well,
only a
even if
fraction, but only a fraction of it is discretionary. And the things that are the sacred cows, if you start talking about trying to nibble at Social Security, you're going to have a whole bunch of people coming at you,
well,
including
even if
people
we
who
could
vote.
get, well, yeah, and I say no, don't touch the amounts that go out, but maybe we can use AI to find people who are abusing the system. There are more people on Social Security that are 112 years old than there are 112-year-olds alive. Let's use AI or some method to get rid of the people that are taking Social Security when they're not really supposed to be
Alive.
taking Social Security. Yeah, alive. Or it's just like someone stole an identity and they're pulling from something that's, let's figure that out and save a couple of bucks.
I don't. Would anybody be against that? I don't think it's trying to use AI to detect theft. I think that's the best way to use it to cut down the
Yeah.
budget. I think it's the money, the budget money is in the sacred cows. And whenever I mean, at scale, like talk about cutting Medicare, talk about cutting Social Security, talk about cutting defense, and you might get your head cut off by people who vote. And that's the challenge of throwing out a number like 2 trillion and not really knowing where you're going to actually get that from.
Yeah, I would add. I think for AI, I would love to see, if that was the case. I would love to see it for something about a decision like that would be predictive or forecasting, rather than the because that's the stuff that's going to make a difference. Think about like Chicago, for example. It was controversial for Chicago to sell off the Chicago parking. Forgot the name of the entity, but it's the parking that you go there for. That was a big deal. I think I remember it was Daily that sold it off. On the one hand, the city of Chicago got a lump sum from the company that privatized it. The downside was that there was revenue that probably it could have used from that, from events that were happening. So I would, if we're going to talk about cutting things in government, I would like to see something a little bit more strategic that comes out of it, rather than just say. I think people romanticize the idea of a cut, and they don't realize that you don't want to cut out libraries. You don't want to cut out schools, basically, because
Some
those
people
things
do, though.
do
Some
have.
people.
Yeah,
Some people do.
yeah, yeah. I'm in disagreement about the whole Department of Education thing, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But my overall point is, look systematically at what you're trying to do. And I think that's the part that's missing from a lot of this dialogue. And Musk is, like I said, Musk has innovations. I just don't always think that it's necessarily. I tend to get a little nervous with business. No matter how successful the business owner is, that you have someone going into a public office and thinking in terms of enterprise and not thinking in terms of long-term strategic, because a lot of times you start missing out on things that, yeah, you may have cut it, but what is the societal benefit? That's the part that has to be addressed, or at least brought to mind.
All right, guys, we've thoroughly beaten that one up. It was really good. I'm still thinking about the tarot card reader, but that was pretty good. All right. So,
how about Taro Reader and barbecue? You have to have barbecue. So
barbecue.
don't live there. So
All right, I'm all
that
for
might be a
that.
Texas thing. Taro and brisket. There you go.
All right. So, our party thoughts. We'll stick right with you, Pierre. What are your last thoughts for the week?
The thing that surprised me is I'm excited about the NVIDIA digits.
That was the big thing coming out of CES.
Yeah, I didn't catch on to that until the other day. I happened to read. I was like, this isn't bad. It's $3,000, which now you're talking
Yeah.
about $3,000 on top of a laptop. If you stop and think about it, even if you got a MacBook Pro with large amount of memory, large amount of disk space, what have you, that's actually cheaper in some respects. But I think
Pierre, could you just, for
yes.
people who aren't familiar, what you're talking about, tell them what it is?
Oh, yeah. So what it is, think of it as just it's a small computer, almost the size of a small book, that allows you to do development on large language models. The reason why this is a big deal is that usually large language models are done at a data center. We now have it in something that's book size, which means now independents, small businesses, data scientists, they can actually create large language models and AI from home. There's a convenience to it. So that's the excitement about this, basically.
Awesome. Yeah, I am excited about that one too. I will not try to hide it. Anyway, Shashi.
Yeah, I've been doing some research on what businesses should do to not to lose their website visits, because the number of calls that I'm talking to, people are losing their organic traffic, but their conversions remain the same, which means that people have to pay attention to the zero clicks, meaning these are people who will go and find the information about your company but will not come to your website because they already got what they needed. So now it's important for your content to be there in places where people are searching for. And the only way to do it is not to go and publish in different places, but to pay attention to your website and write like really good original content versus trying to follow everybody else.
Yep.
I have some research on that, but I thought I'll alert our audience, especially coming from Small Biz Trends and other places, that continue to tell your story in whichever way you can on your website.
Leland.
I'll add on to that. Actually, a couple of days ago, I came across a local doctor's office who let their domain expire. And I went to their website through Google, and it just said, "Hey, this domain has expired." And I called them up, and they said, "Oh yeah, we got a new domain." Get your old domain and forward it to the new one. Don't all of your credits on the old domain.
Yep.
Don't just expect that Google's going to flip it over when you haven't even told them that you flipped it over. A person can go and buy that domain and make it anything they want, and they will. And they're like, "Oh, that's a good point." So be careful about the little things, even like that. If you're gonna, move, tell Google that you're moving. It's $12 and maybe like 15 minutes of work for a developer to just 301 redirect it. Heck, you can even do it yourself. GoDaddy has all the tools for that. Just the little things. Just make sure that you are taken care of when it comes to your brand and that there's no disruption.
Guess what? Your competitor could do it real easy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my parting thought is, wow, we're getting very close to our CRM Players celebration / event. January 21st, 22nd, Atlanta, the Atlanta Tech Village in Buckhead. I know Shashi and Leland and Pierre, if you're interested, the invite goes to you as well. But it is an invite only thing, and it's getting pretty interesting. What are we, 10, 12 days out or something like that? Oh my God, it's really coming up. Anyway, if you're interested, because there's a way to watch virtually as well, IRL2025.com, where you can find some information about the event, who's speaking, what we're going to be doing. It's getting really close. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited about it. And I am excited about doing this again next week. We always find interesting stuff to talk about. And I think for me, I'm still stuck on the tarot card reading thing. Thanks for got that in my head.
I'll find the article and send that to everybody. So yeah,
I want the combo tarot card and barbecue. That's where, because why not get a good reading while eating some ribs? I mean, that's like a perfect. Just keep the IRS away from these people. That's all I'm saying. All right, we will see you all next week. Have a great weekend.